Yeah, I better put my better put my headphones on here so you can hear me. Okay, Wilbert T. Sass, Omaha, Nebraska, at the Palace. So I have a quick video this morning, September 27, 2019, that is entitled American Customers. Now, most people aren't aware, there's lots of people that buy different things, but there's only two kinds of customers. Now, I don't know whether a lot of people aren't aware of this, but uh, I want to point this out to you because it's so critical for people to understand this information. It's very critical for the well-being of our business climate. And we all know that we're getting a lot of news accounts and a lot of uh, promotions and ideas about how good things are. Well, and maybe that's so, but things can always be better, and that's what I'm all about. In other words, uh, I'm trying to cut through some of this noise about how good things are, and it may be true. I'm not arguing with it. I'm just saying that things can always be better, right? So that's what I want to talk to you about. So really, what we've got a situation where there's two kinds of customers. Now, like I said, everybody's always buying a lot of different things and paying for a lot of different things with the money they earn. But the bottom line is when you really get down and study the situation, what you see is there's two kinds of customers in America today. There's the customers that live in what the government says, the U.S. Census uh, Agency says is high income zip codes. And those are one kind of customers, okay? And then you've got what the government says is customers, or they say people, they say consumers, but they're customers, is what they are. And they say that then there's the ones that live in low income zip codes. Now, isn't that interesting? Why would somebody choose to live in a low income zip code? Well, I think it's more likely correct if you would say there's the customers that have to live there or they're forced to live in zip codes that are identified as low income consumers or customers. They say they live in there's people that live in low income zip codes, but they're really if that's the true, then they're low income zip codes. Otherwise, why would they live there? Huh? Why would they? And the reverse is true also. Now, I'm not downing people that are able to live in high income zip codes. I'm so tickled pink for them that I can't hardly begin to tell you how tickled pink I am for them. But I really am more interested in the people that live in low income zip codes because I say my reasoning and my rationale, my logic says to me, why would anybody choose to live in a low income zip code? I mean, why? The reason is because they're forced to live there, right? Now, the question remains when you think of that, when you get that far with your logic, all right, so that's it. They live in low income zip codes because not because they want to. I don't know anybody that wants to live there unless been living in a cave and they found out there's sunlight, and so they ended up in uh, the bottom line is why you have to get down to why are they forced there, because they wouldn't live there if they didn't have to, right? So you have to ask yourself why. Well, there's all kinds of reasons why people are living in low income zip codes, and there's also some reasons why. Now this is very important. There's also some reasons, and very important reasons, why they're forced to live there. And the reason is because America for 70 years, that's a long time. That's 3 generations about, generally speaking. Okay. Some guy will pop up and say, well, I know that's 3 generations. Well, you just kind of know that from life experience. I mean, I came up born 1940, okay, and I got married when I was 16 years old, 17 years old. That was 1958, and I had 6 children over the years, and all boys, and they had children, and then they had children, and now those children, my grandchildren, are living now, and they're not. Some of them aren't quite ready to have children yet. The grandchildren, of course, but that's the 3rd generation. Well, from 40 to 2019, you've got 3 generations, and that's what, 60, that's 80 years. So I'm just saying since 70 because I'm talking about the time since I was a young man, 17, 18 years old, starting out as a married family man, okay, with a child. So 3 generations. Now, what I'm trying to point out is for 70 years, since 1960 on, American businesses have been price gouging American consumers. Now you say, well, that's a pretty stiff term you're using there. What makes you think that American businesses have been price gouging American consumers for 70 years? Well, if you know, if you've got the background experience and knowledge, you understand why they've been doing it. Now, I'm not saying it's illegal. I mean, there have been, I guess, certain cases where after a hurricane or after a disaster or something, and business has been somewhat, like interrupted. People need to buy things, and they only can get to certain places. And there's some unethical business owners that raise their prices because they know they can't go anywhere else and get anything. That's called price gouging, and they've even passed laws and made that a crime to do that in that kind of a situation or circumstance. But I'm talking about legal price gouging, okay? And it's so pervasive today, and it's been pervasive for 70 years, starting way back in the 60s up until now, 2019. It's so pervasive that it affects almost every consumer in America, which is like 300 some odd million of us, okay? And what you have to understand that because of that price gouging and because it's so pervasive, it doesn't matter what kind of business, it doesn't matter where you go to get services or products, you're being price gouged, and it's legal, and there's nothing illegal about it. And I guess the laissez-faire concept of the idea, let the buyer beware, is the commercial byword in business. In other words, as long as you're not violating any laws, you can do to customers whatever you want to do. Now, the smart businessman the idea is to get customers and keep them, so you don't want to run them off, okay? And then you've got the people that are stupid in business, and that's all they know how to do is run customers off. So I mean, it takes all kinds to be in business, but the smart businessman is interested in getting and keeping customers, and I'm telling you right now, I know that this price gouging's been going on all these 70 years. I know it has, and I'm going to prove it to you in logic and reason. And it's legal. There's nothing illegal about it. But I'm also going to say that if customers, are stupid enough to allow themselves to be price gouged, then I say it's on them. I don't blame the business to price gouge them as long as the consumer is willing to say, hey, I love this. I love being price gouged. I love being being forced to pay or given no option to pay up to 30 to 50% more than I have to, the way a regular normal business practice would work. And I love it. And so keep pouring out, or they just price gouge the devil out of me. And I love it. And I'm going to keep doing it. And they're making enough money so they can do that and be stupid if they want to. You see what I mean? And it's legal. See, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if the guy's stupid enough, the woman's stupid enough, the kids and the young people are stupid enough to let themselves be put in that position, I say to the businessman that's doing it to them, do it to them, boy. Hammer them, hammer them, hammer them. See, keep it up. And we know it works because that's what's been going on. Now, but you got the other people that maybe they're not quite earning quite as much money as that, see? And see, they can't even get a taste of that price gouging because they don't even have after they pay their rent and their utility bills and they're buying what groceries they can eat together to buy at home after even maybe working a couple of jobs, trying to take care of their family, paying high rent in a low rent area. I mean, low zip code area. See, that's another thing. Rents are lower in lower income, according to the government, lower income zip codes, rents are lower, but they're not low enough relative to the same kind of costs in the higher income zip codes for the difference in the amount of money that's invested. Did you get all that? See, if you don't understand the finances involved with real estate investing and what the rate of return is and what the real rate of return is, see, you can go out and the reason why I know this is true is because these people that do this house flipping, they don't like to go into the areas where there's low income because there's nobody going to go out there and buy those houses after they buy the house, invest cash in it, and then spend a lot of money on updating the house and then try to sell it and flip it for a profit. They're not going to go in those because there's nobody over there to qualify for them kind of loans. See? So they go into the areas where the incomes are starting to creep up into the zip codes, and they get these houses and they invest money in them and they invest time and money updating them, and then they got something to sell to a market that's got a high enough income in that area that they can sell that house and make a profit on that flipping deal. It's really a sick way to make money, in my opinion, but that's another story. But there's a lot better ways to make money than to feed on people like that. Anyway, that's not the purpose of this video. But so back to this business of price gouging. See, here's the bottom line. What you've got is about 50% of businesses today are caught up in what I call the buy a job syndrome, where they're a franchisee. See, that's what these guys that own and women that own these franchises, and they just proliferated like crazy over the last 70 years. I mean, there's a franchise for everything under the sun. As a matter of fact, that'd be a good name for a franchise. Everything under the sun. We got it. But I mean, it doesn't matter what category of business. See, everything is by categories. In other words, and that's where you've got competition in categories. See, so there's, let's just take beauty shops, for example. Well, you've got your franchise beauty shops, and then you've got your independent beauty shops. And the independent beauty shops, the smarter business beauticians and cosmetologists, and the ones that are maybe inherited some money or got a little money somewhere along the line from their husband or whoever, they've been able to rent these places and these chairs, and then they rent these out to other cosmetologists that aren't in that position. So they can't have their own place, but they can have their own chair if they rent a chair. You see what I'm saying? But the point is, there's franchise beauty shops, and I'm just taking beauty shops as an example now, but this is true with other it doesn't matter what category of business. About half of the business that's done in that category is done by franchisees, the people that bought a job, and that's all you've done. And I'm not trying to denigrate those people because I did it. I bought 10 of the most popular and most valued franchises. I bought 10 of them in 1969. That was a long time ago. And that's where I learned that when you buy a franchisee, these people that buy franchises, they get the idea that, well, they got their own business. Well, they don't have their own business. They're working for the franchisor. See, they bought a job is what they did. That's what I did. I bought a job. I learned this. It took me. I was only 36 years old, and I'd been in sales since I was 8 years old by that time. So I was 36. So 8 from 36 is 24 years. I'd been in sales. So I was pretty doggone experienced, but I wasn't experienced to the point where I really got a schooling when I bought the franchises. Didn't realize what I was getting into because didn't have the background experience. See, I learned all this by being in that franchise business because they taught me. They believe me. They taught me. They taught me what I can do and what I can't do. And it's a long story, so I'm not going to go into that in this video. Because it's not germane to what the point I want to get across in this video. But so I know the franchise business because when you buy 10 of the address franchises of the most popular franchise that in fact is at the time is the biggest franchise in the world. Okay, now I'm not going to mention their name, give them any free advertising. But this is all a matter of history. This is not conjecture. This is not my opinion. This is not, but these are facts and figures. And anybody that knows me, anybody in my family, anybody that knows me well enough to know who I was and what I was in 1969 knows this is a fact, what I'm talking to you about. This is not something I'm making up. Okay. A lot of people accuse salesmen of being that way. Well, I'm not saying I never done it. I'm not saying I never did do it, but I'm just saying this is what salesmen get accused of. Okay. So, franchises price gouge people, customers, to the tune of anywhere from 25% as high as 50% today. And franchise businesses today, in whatever category you want to look at, control about half of the business in that category across the spectrum. And you say, well, that's only the franchises. You would think, wouldn't you? Now, the logic would tell you that if they're price gouging people anywhere from 20 to 25 to 50% now, then logic would say to you, well, then the independent business owners must really have a go to get new customers of business away from the franchises because, boy, anybody that could save that kind of money, they wouldn't go there, right? They'd go over to an independent business owner, but that's not the way it works out. And the laws of economics won't allow that to happen because you've only got one store trying to compete with thousands of stores. That's why that won't happen. And that's also why the guy or the woman that owns the independent store in a category says to themselves when they look at the franchise that's got all the business, they say, well, why don't we charge just like they charge? Don't you see? That makes sense? In other words, why should we charge less and go broke? Why don't we charge the same as they're charging and we're able to eke out a little bit of a profit and make our income a little bit higher, even though we're only one store? Does that all make sense to you? I don't know whether it does or not, but it should, you see. So, how do I know that franchises overcharge and price gouge customers like that? Well, I know this because franchises, first of all, you have to spend, you have to be, in order to buy a good franchise today, you have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of net worth, or they won't even talk to you. they qualify you down. See, you've got to put in so much cash up front to even be considered. You have to have that ability to buy a franchise because you're going to get so rich. They're going, they can convince you that you're going to get so rich when you buy this franchise because of all this benefits that they're going to be able to give to you because they're so good. Their business plan is so good and blah blah blah. And it turns out a lot of it's true. I mean, if they're raking in 50% more money, generally speaking, than or up to that amount, generally speaking, than it costs to run the business on any angle you want to look at it. Naturally, there's going to be a lot of wealth accumulation, isn't there? And we've seen it. I mean, we've seen these franchises. I mean, they're so wealthy, their pockets are so deep that they can go overseas and command, and they've done that. They ran out. They switched. This is a long story, and I don't want to get too deep in the weeds because I'll lose you if I do, and I don't want to do that because it's very important for you to understand about these low income American consumers who are underserved. They're underserved. These people, I mean, if businesses today are price gouging to the tune of 20 to 25 to 50% more than what it should be. So no matter where they go to buy, most of those people in low income zip codes can't even buy in order to get price gouged. And the ones that can are whatever they're spending 20 to 50% more than they have to buy that. If they could buy that from a business that was being run according to normal business practices, which was simply taking an account what the actual cost of running that business was, and then just adding on a reasonable profit so the owner could make a decent living serving those customers, there'd be a 20 to 50% savings. So those customers living in those what the government says are low income zip codes, well, they'd be able to live a little bit nicer life, wouldn't they? And the amazing thing about this is if that's sort of a reset of the way things are done in business ever to occur, you'd see a lot of the higher income zip code people saying, wait a minute, why are we spending all this, that, and the other? And so then that opens up opportunities for businessmen in those areas to serve customers in a better, more efficient way and cut out all these people that are sucking off all of the bags on the milk platter, if you kind of get my analogy, off of all these people that have. You're always going to have the person that's got the money and doesn't really care, if they're spending more than they have to. But fortunately, I think that it would come around to the point where if people with a lot of higher incomes realize that they can save, 20 to 50%, from 20 to 30 to 50% by going over to a certain business where they lived in their high income zip code, that's where they'd go, wouldn't they? They're not stupid. They might not be informed today, but they're not stupid, are they? They'd go there, wouldn't they? Well, then that would mean those other outfits would just go in the drain. Now you say, well, that's not good. So what about all the employees that are working there? Well, what about them? They're not getting paid like they should be paid. Most of those franchise outfits they're not paying high income wages. So the people that work in franchises, they're at a dead end job. Let's face it. Where are they going to go? The owner is a franchisee, has got a business on an address, and that's all. And then only if it does things a certain way. And they're only going to let them make a certain amount of money. If they want to make more, they got to go out and buy another address franchise. And there are not very many of those available in the United States anymore today. That's why the old franchises went offshore. and they built their business offshore on the backs of the American consumers that built their brand in the United States, and they didn't even say thank you. They didn't even say thank you. All they did was raise prices. That's why they have so. That's why they haven't so. They've had to go to the point where they're selling lab-grown meat now to American consumers to try to save enough money so they can still make the outrageous profits that they've been making. Now, you tell me that makes any kind of American consumer sense that they're going to, now they're not even going to sell you. We're going to have to sell our good American beef offshore in order to keep those people in business that are growing and finishing beef in the United States and the slaughter industry in the United States. I mean, it's to the point now where I'll tell you what, I could go on for days talking about this. I mean, there's so many areas where things are so fouled up, and we've got this political push on the right that keeps telling us how good things are, and I'm not complaining. Don't misunderstand me. I agree with most of it. Okay, I do. But the thing of it is, what I said earlier was things can always be better. And the ones that are taking care of the stuff on the right politically high up, those people, they're looking at the 30,000, 60,000 foot picture. They're not down. And they're talking about we got one of these guys out here on one of these agencies in the United States on the right that's come up with all these opportunity zones. Opportunity for who? I like to talk to him. I like to get him in my office, and I like to talk to him for a little while about opportunity for who? For investors. Qualified investors. Do you know who qualified investors are? You got to be worth a certain amount of money, according to the government, to be what they call a qualified investor, and what banks call qualified investors. See, everything is funneled in a way that helps the guy that's got it, and is funneled in a way reverse in a way to the guy that and the woman that and the families that don't have it, and they want to keep it that way because it looks good on paper. But when you get down into real life, like I'm talking about here, it's not that way anymore. And it never was that way. And it started to go downhill 70 years ago. And that's 3 generations. And I could talk for a day and a half about the 3-generation problem. Believe me, I could. And I wouldn't repeat myself either. Did you get all that? See, 3 generations. Does that ring a bell to anybody at all? 3 generations? Does anybody know anything about the Word of God? No, you don't. Why do you think we've had the kind of a history that we've had? Think about 70 years ago. Think about 90 years ago. Think about what happened 90 years ago. Think of what's happened since then. Think about these things. Or do you care? Do you care? Or are you so self-absorbed that you don't care? So here's the thing. There's a solution. There's a very good solution to all this. It's just a question of turning the focus. And I've got a program that I'm involved with, that I've created, and it's called Underserved American Customers. And it's associated with that as its topic. It's associated with public speaker event. And guess who that public speaker is? Is me. because I'm going to shine the light on. I'm going to go out into the low income zip codes and I'm going to elucidate. I'm going to expound on. I'm going to teach and ask people to think about these things because it's all right there. Evidence is all right there. All you got to look at is how the government even slurs people that they call low income zip people that live in they slur their economic position because low income zip codes they have the people they have the population of low end what they call low income zip codes. Well, the government calls they don't even call them people. They don't even call them customer. They call them consumers. It's like you're a machine and the American business just pours in whatever they're selling into you and you consume it. That's the way they look at you. We've been called the deplorables. See, we're the deplorables by the far as the agencies are concerned. Not all of them, but it's bad enough. It needs fixing. All right. And I'm not talking about the 60,000 foot level or the 30,000 big picture level and the world scene and all that jazz. I'm talking about the family that lives out here in what the government says is low income zip codes. They got to have some attention. And I'm not talking about assistance. I'm talking about capitalism, only I put a twist on it. Is capitalism zero profit? And you say, well, that don't even make sense. Well, it don't. Well, you'd rather have capitalism abused, huh? Because that's why so many young people today think capitalism is bad and socialism is good. Because they've been shown that capitalism has been abused to the point where we've got a lot of people running around politically talking up a storm about how good socialism is, and socialism has never been a successful form of government in all of human history. It always ends up in an ash heap in a pile, and we got a lot of current examples of it right now on the planet. If you're smart enough to take a look at it. I'm out of here. Look for me, Wilbert T. Sass, at Facebook and at my websites. And you can find me. Just Google me. I'm there until they start blocking me, if they do, because they're prone to do that kind of thing. And you know who I'm talking about when I'm talking about they.